Hello and welcome. Tonight we are going to travel very far back in time, not to a place of battles or kings shouting commands, but to a quieter world. A world lit by soft oil lamps. A world where the slow river Nile moves gently under the moonlight, and where people, just like you and me, slowly prepare for sleep at the end of a long day. This is the world of ancient Egypt. When many people think of Egypt, they imagine pyramids, golden tombs, and powerful pharaohs. But tonight, we are not visiting the grand palaces or the royal tombs. Instead, we will explore something much softer, something peaceful. We will explore how ordinary Egyptians ended their day, how they relaxed, how they washed away the dust of the desert, how families gathered in quiet homes, and how they finally drifted into sleep under the ancient stars. So settle in. Take a slow breath and imagine the warm desert air of Egypt around you. Our journey begins as the sun slowly begins to set along the banks of the Nile, the sun's gentle farewell in ancient Egypt. The setting sun meant much more than the end of a day. It marked the beginning of a sacred transition. The Egyptians believed the sun itself was alive. Its journey across the sky was guided by the powerful sun god, Ra. Every morning, Ra sailed across the heavens in a magnificent solar boat, bringing light to the world. And every evening, as the sun began to descend toward the western horizon, Egyptians believed Ra was preparing to travel into the mysterious world beneath the earth. This nightly journey was called the Duat, the underworld. It was believed that during the night, Ra would sail through dark waters, pass through hidden gates, and battle dangerous forces of chaos, and if everything went well, the sun would rise again the next morning. So as evening approached, people often paused for a moment. Farmers standing in the fields might look west toward the glowing horizon. Boatmen on the Nile slowed their paddles. Children playing near the water stopped to watch the sky change color. The moment felt calm, respectful, almost peaceful, because the world itself seemed to be slowly preparing for rest. The village begins to slow as the sun disappears. Life in Egyptian villages begins to soften. The busy sounds of the day slowly fade. Farm tools are gathered. Animals are led back into small enclosures. The dusty roads between houses grow quieter. Most Egyptians lived in villages near the Nile. These communities were simple but lively. During the day they were filled with movement, farmers working the land, potters shaping clay, carpenters carving wood, women grinding grain to make flour, children running through narrow streets. But evening brought a different rhythm, a slower one. Smoke rises from small cooking fires. The smell of bread baking in clay ovens spreads through the air, and families begin to return home. Imagine walking through one of these villages. Mud brick houses line the path. Palm trees rustle gently in the breeze. Some neighbors sit outside their homes talking quietly. Others finish small tasks. Before the darkness fully arrives, the sky above turns deep orange, then purple, and slowly into night. The day is ending, and a peaceful evening begins. Returning home. After a long day, for most Egyptians, the day began very early. Often before the sun had even risen, farmers walked to their fields as the sky was still pale with early light. They planted crops like wheat and barley. They cut reeds along the river. They carried heavy baskets of grain. The work was demanding. The Egyptian sun could be intense, especially during the summer months. By evening, many people felt deeply tired. Their clothes were dusty, their hands rough from work, their bodies ready for rest. So when the walk home finally begins, it often feels slow and comforting. Imagine following a narrow dirt path back toward the village. The sky above is now filled with fading sunlight. Birds glide across the river. The Nile reflects the last golden colors of the day. You pass fishermen pulling their small boats onto the shore. Children walk beside their parents, carrying small baskets or bundles of reeds. Everyone moves calmly. No one rushes, because the evening belongs to rest, and everyone knows the night will soon arrive. Inside an Egyptian home. Now imagine stepping inside one of these homes. Most houses in ancient Egypt were built from mud bricks. These bricks were made by mixing Nile clay with straw and drying the mixture under the hot sun. The walls were thick, which helped keep the house cool during the day. From the outside, the homes looked simple, but inside they felt warm and comfortable. The rooms were not large, furniture was minimal. Perhaps a low wooden stool, a small table, a few woven baskets holding tools or food. The floors were often covered with reed mats. These mats made the space feel softer and cleaner. As darkness arrives, a small oil lamp is lit. The flame flickers gently, its warm glow spreads across the room, creating soft shadows along the walls. The house becomes quiet, peaceful, and safe from the cool desert night outside, washing away the dust of the day before settling down for the evening. Many Egyptians liked to clean themselves. The dusty desert air often left a thin layer of sand on the skin, so washing felt refreshing. Water was usually carried from the Nile in clay jars. A family might keep several jars inside the house. Some wealthier homes had servants who helped with washing, but most people simply washed themselves using small bowls of water. Imagine dipping your hands into cool water after a long day in the sun. The dust slowly washes away. Your skin begins to feel fresh again. Some Egyptians also used simple soaps made from animal fats and plant oils. Others cleaned their skin with natron, a natural mineral salt found in dry lake beds. Natron worked as a natural cleanser. It helped remove oils and dirt. Cleanliness was very important in Egyptian culture, not just for comfort, but also for spiritual reasons. They believed that a clean body pleased the god, and preparing for sleep with a clean body helped bring peaceful dreams. Preparing the evening meal, soon the comforting smell of food begins to fill the home. Dinner in ancient Egypt was simple but satisfying. Bread was the most important food. Nearly every meal included bread made from wheat or barley. The dough was shaped by hand and baked in clay ovens. These ovens stayed warm long after the fire faded, allowing bread to bake slowly. The smell of warm bread was one of the most familiar scents in Egyptian homes. Along with bread, families might eat vegetables such as onions, beans, lentils, or cucumbers. Fish from the Nile was also common. Sometimes dates or figs were served as a sweet treat. And almost every household had beer. Egyptian beer was different from modern beer. It was thick, slightly sweet, and made from fermented grain. Even children sometimes drank weak versions of it because it was often safer than river water. The family gathers together on woven mats. They eat slowly, talking quietly about the day. Children share small stories. Parents listen. The mood is calm. The stress of the day slowly melts away. The cooling desert evening. Outside, the air begins to cool. The desert is known for its intense daytime heat, but once the sun sets, the temperature drops quickly. A gentle breeze moves through the village. Palm leaves rustle softly. The sky above Egypt becomes incredibly clear. Without modern lights, the stars appear bright and endless. The ancient Egyptians loved the night sky. They believed the stars were connected to the gods. Some believed the spirits of the dead lived among the stars. So looking upward at night often felt meaningful, peaceful, almost magical. Imagine standing outside your home. The Nile flows quietly nearby. Thousands of stars shine overhead. The world feels calm and the night feels full of quiet wonder, a quiet moment of prayer before sleep. Many Egyptians spent a moment in quiet prayer. Religion was deeply woven into daily life. Even ordinary homes often had small household shrines. These shrines might contain small statues of protective gods. One of the most common was Bes. Bes was a strange but friendly-looking god with a round belly and a lion-like face. He was believed to protect families, especially during sleep. Another protective figure was Taweret. She appeared as a standing hippopotamus. She protected mothers and babies. Families might whisper small prayers before bed, asking for protection during the night, asking the gods to guard their dreams, and asking for the sun to rise again safely tomorrow. These quiet moments helped people feel safe, comforted, ready for sleep. The village falls asleep. Now the night grows deeper. Cooking fires fade. Oil lamps flicker softly inside homes. The village becomes very quiet. Parents prepare sleeping spaces. Beds in ancient Egypt were simple wooden frames with woven ropes stretched across them. Poorer families sometimes slept on mats made from reeds. Soft linen cloths served as blankets. Instead of pillows, Egyptians used curved wooden headrests. These supported the neck while keeping the head elevated. It may seem unusual to us today, but for them, it was completely normal. Families settle down. Children close their eyes. The gentle sounds of the night fill the air. Crickets chirping, palm leaves rustling. The slow movement of the Nile, and under the ancient Egyptian stars, sleep slowly begins to arrive. But in ancient Egypt, the night was more than just a time for rest. People believed that once the body slept, the spirit began its own quiet journey. Dreams carried messages, protective charms guarded sleeping families, and mysterious nighttime traditions shaped the way Egyptians experienced the dark hours before dawn. And as the night grows deeper along the Nile, these hidden rituals are only just beginning. When sleep opens the door to dreams, in ancient Egypt, sleep was never seen as something ordinary. To them, the moment when the eyes closed and the body rested was a moment when the soul could quietly travel. The Egyptians believed that each person had a spiritual part called the Ba. The Ba was often imagined as a small bird with a human head. During sleep, many believed that this spirit could move freely, it could wander, it could visit distant places, it could even speak with the gods. Because of this belief, dreams were taken very seriously. A dream was not just imagination, it could be a message, warning, or even a blessing. So when Egyptians prepared to sleep, they were not only preparing their bodies to rest, they were preparing their minds for whatever dreams might come. The quiet guardians of the night inside many Egyptian homes, small protective figures were placed near sleeping areas. These figures were not decorations, they were guardians. One of the most important of these guardians was the small and unusual god named Bes. Bes looked different from the elegant gods seen in temples. He had a wide face, a large beard, round eyes, and sometimes a playful smile. But despite his unusual appearance, Bes was beloved by families. He was believed to chase away nightmares, he protected children from fear, and he guarded homes during the vulnerable hours of the night. Many families placed small statues of Bes near the bed. Some painted his image on the walls of their homes, others wore small amulets shaped like him. They believed his presence would keep dangerous spirits away while they slept. And in the soft glow of an oil lamp, the small figure of Bes stood watch quietly through the night. Taweret, the gentle protector Bes, was not the only protector of sleep. Another powerful guardian was Taweret. Her appearance was unusual. She had the body of a pregnant hippopotamus, the paws of a lion, and the tail of a crocodile. To outsiders, she might seem frightening, but to the people of Egypt, Taweret was gentle and protective. She watched over mothers, she protected newborn children, and she guarded families during the night. Many homes had small statues of Taweret placed near sleeping areas. Expecting mothers often kept her image close. By they believed her strength could protect both mother and child during sleep. In the quiet darkness of Egyptian homes, the figures of Bes and Tawere worked together as silent guardians. Their presence brought comfort, and people slept with the calm belief that powerful protectors were watching over them, amulets beneath the pillow, along with statues of protective gods. Many Egyptians also kept small magical objects near their beds. These objects were called amulets. Amulets were believed to carry protective power. They could guard against illness, bad luck, or disturbing dreams. Some amulets were carved from stone. Others were made from colored glass or precious metals. One of the most common shapes was the Eye of Horus. This symbol represented protection and healing. Families might place an amulet beneath a pillow or wear one around the neck while sleeping. Children often had protective charms tied gently around their arms. These small objects gave people a feeling of safety. As the oil lamps dimmed and the village grew quiet, Egyptians believed these charms quietly guarded their dreams. The importance of linen and comfort. Egyptians valued comfort during sleep more than many people might imagine. Even though their beds were simple, they paid attention to how sleeping spaces were arranged. Linen cloth was very important. Egypt was famous for producing fine linen from flax plants grown along the Nile. This linen was soft and breathable, perfect for the warm climate. Families often used folded linen cloths as blankets. Some wrapped themselves loosely in linen while sleeping. Others covered their sleeping mats with it for comfort. Clean linen was also seen as a sign of purity. Before sleep, many people made sure their bedding was fresh. This simple act helped create a feeling of calm and order inside the home. And in the quiet stillness of the night, these simple linen coverings helped people drift comfortably into sleep. The sound of the Nile at night. Outside the village, the Nile River continued its slow and endless journey. At night, the river sounded different. During the day, it was busy with boats and fishermen, but at night, it became peaceful. The gentle movement of water against the riverbanks created a soft, steady rhythm. Small waves brushed quietly against wooden boats tied along the shore. Sometimes frogs could be heard calling from the reeds. Birds resting along the water shifted softly in their nests. For people living near the Nile, these sounds were familiar, comforting. The steady movement of the river had been part of life for generations. Many Egyptians fell asleep listening to the quiet music of the Nile flowing in the darkness. Oil lamps and soft light inside. The home's oil lamps continued to glow softly. These lamps were small bowls made from clay or stone. A wick soaked in oil rested inside. When lit, the wick produced a steady flame. The light was not bright, it was gentle, just enough to see the room, just enough to bring a feeling of warmth. Families often allowed the lamp to burn for a short time after lying down. The soft flicker helped children feel safe, and it gave the room a peaceful glow. Eventually, as sleep approached, someone would carefully extinguish the lamp. The room would grow darker. Only the faint silver light of the moon might slip through a small window. And slowly, quietly, the house would fall into complete stillness. The first stage of sleep in ancient Egypt often came slowly. Without bright lights or loud noise, the body followed the natural rhythm of the night. People usually went to bed soon after. Darkness arrived, but they did not always sleep deeply right away. The first stage of sleep was light. People drifted in and out of dreams. Sometimes they woke briefly during the night. This was normal. The night felt long and peaceful. If someone woke up, they might listen to the quiet sounds outside or simply lie still and rest. Then slowly, gently, sleep would return. The darkness wrapped the village in calm silence, and beneath the wide Egyptian sky, thousands of people rested quietly, a civilization resting under the stars. If you could rise high above Egypt during this moment, you would see the Nile winding through the land like a dark ribbon, villages scattered along its banks, and thousands of small homes resting beneath the stars. Inside those homes, families slept peacefully, protected by their gods, guarded by their amulets, comforted by the steady rhythm of the river. For the people of ancient Egypt, sleep was not just rest, it was a sacred pause in the cycle of life, a quiet moment between one sunrise and the next. And as the hours of darkness continued, the mysterious world of Egyptian dreams was slowly beginning to unfold. When dreams begin to speak, in ancient Egypt, dreams were never ignored. If someone woke in the morning and remembered a dream clearly, it was often discussed carefully. People believed dreams were messages. Sometimes they were messages from the gods, sometimes they were warnings, and sometimes they were gentle signs meant to guide a person's life. Because of this belief, Egyptians often paid close attention to the details of their dreams. If a farmer dreamed of clear water flowing calmly, it could be a sign of good harvests. If someone dreamed of storms or chaos, it might mean challenges were coming. These interpretations were not random. Egyptians even created written guides to help explain dreams. Some of these guides have survived for thousands of years. They are known today as dream papyri. Inside these ancient texts, scribes recorded many dream symbols and their meanings. A dream about seeing oneself drinking cool water was said to be good. It meant health and happiness. But dreaming of falling into muddy water might suggest trouble ahead. People read these texts carefully. They believed understanding dreams helped them understand their future. The dream books of ancient Egypt, long before modern psychology studied dreams, the Egyptians were already recording them. One of the most famous dream texts discovered by historians is called the Chester Beatty Dream Book. This papyrus scroll was written more than 3,000 years ago. Inside it, dreams were listed in careful rows. Each dream description was followed by an explanation, and each explanation began with a simple phrase. If a man sees himself in a dream, then the meaning would follow. Some dreams were labeled as good dreams. Others were labeled as bad dreams. For example, if someone dreamed about seeing bright sunlight, it was often considered a good sign. But dreaming about being trapped or lost might be interpreted as a warning. People did not always panic when they had troubling dreams. Instead, they might visit a temple or pray for protection. Dreams were simply another part of life, another mysterious way the world communicated with them. Dream temples and sacred sleep. Some Egyptians believed that the most powerful dreams came from sacred places. So when people needed guidance, they sometimes visited temples dedicated to sleep and dreams. These temples were peaceful places filled with the smell of incense, lit by gentle oil lamps. Inside these temples, visitors would lie down and sleep overnight. They hoped that during their sleep, a god would appear in their dreams and offer advice or healing or answers to difficult questions. This practice is known today as dream incubation. The temple priests helped prepare the visitors. They might offer prayers or perform small rituals. The goal was to create a calm and sacred environment for sleep. People believed the gods were more likely to speak through dreams in these quiet temples. So visitors slept patiently, waiting for whatever dreams might come. The role of the temple priests. Temple priests were very important in helping interpret dreams. These priests spent years studying religious texts. They learned about symbols, about stories of the gods, and about the meanings hidden inside dreams. When someone had a powerful dream in a temple, they often described it to a priest the next morning. The priest would listen carefully. then slowly explain what the dream might mean. Sometimes the meaning was simple, other times it was symbolic, but the goal was always the same: to help the dreamer understand the message being sent to them. These quiet conversations between priests and visitors became an important part of Egyptian spiritual life. Dreams connected ordinary people with the mysterious world of the gods. The calm silence of midnight. Meanwhile, in the villages along the Nile, the night continued peacefully. Midnight in ancient Egypt was deeply quiet. Without street lights or busy roads, the darkness was complete. The moon often provided the only natural light, its soft glow reflected gently across the surface of the Nile. Inside the homes, families slept soundly. The oil lamps had long since been extinguished. The air inside the houses was cool. Outside, the desert breeze moved slowly through the palm trees. Sometimes a distant animal sound could be heard, or the soft splash of fish in the river. But most of the time, the night remained calm, still and peaceful. The protective magic of the headrest. One interesting object used during sleep in ancient Egypt was the headrest. Instead of soft pillows, Egyptians often used a curved wooden support for the head. At first glance, it might seem uncomfortable, but it actually served several purposes. The design kept the head raised slightly. This helped air move around the neck and head during the warm nights. It also protected the sleeper from insects crawling onto the face. But the headrest also had a deeper meaning. Many headrests were decorated with protective carvings. Some showed images of gods. Others had symbols meant to guard the sleeper from evil spirits. In Egyptian belief, the head was an important spiritual center. Protecting the head during sleep was seen as protecting the soul itself. So the simple wooden headrest quietly served as both a practical tool and a protective charm. The gentle rhythm of night life. Although most people slept through the night, ancient Egypt was never completely silent. Some people remained awake. Night guards walked slowly through larger towns. Their job was to watch for danger or fire. Temple priests sometimes stayed awake during certain religious ceremonies. Boatmen traveling along the Nile occasionally moved quietly through the darkness, but overall, nighttime activity was minimal. The ancient world followed the rhythm of the sun. When darkness arrived, most of society rested, and that created long stretches of calm silence across the land. The sacred journey of the sun at night. While humans slept, Egyptians believed something very important was happening in the heavens. The sun god Ra was continuing his nightly journey through the underworld. In Egyptian mythology, this journey was filled with challenges. Ra traveled through dark waters. He passed through hidden gates guarded by powerful spirits, and each night he faced a dangerous enemy, a giant serpent named Apophis. Apophis represented chaos and darkness. Every night Ra battled this serpent to ensure the sun would rise again. Egyptians believed that the success of this battle was essential for life on earth. If Ra failed, the sun might never return, but night after night, the sun god succeeded, and each morning the sun rose again. For Egyptians, this daily cycle was a powerful reminder. Even in darkness, the world was protected by divine forces. The deepest hours of sleep. As the night moved forward, sleep grew deeper. The body relaxed completely. Dreams drifted gently through the mind. Outside, the stars slowly shifted across the sky. The Nile continued its endless journey. Palm trees whispered quietly in the breeze, and thousands of sleeping villages rested peacefully along the riverbanks. For ancient Egyptians, these quiet hours were some of the most peaceful moments of life. A calm pause between one day and the next. A time when the body healed, the mind rested, and the spirit quietly wandered through dreams. And as the night slowly moves toward its final hours, something new begins to stir in the east. because far beyond the horizon, the sun god Ra is preparing for the final stage of his mysterious journey. And soon, the first soft light of dawn will begin to touch the land of Egypt. The final hours of the night, in the quiet villages along the Nile, the deepest part of the night, slowly begins to pass. The stars are still bright in the sky, but something subtle is changing. The air feels slightly cooler. The darkness feels softer. These are the final hours before dawn. For many Egyptians, this was the most peaceful time of the entire night. The world felt completely still. Most people were asleep, resting deeply after the long day that had come before. Inside the mud brick homes, families lay quietly on their beds or reed mats. Soft linen cloth covered their bodies. The wooden headrests supported their heads. Oil lamps had long since gone dark. Only the faint glow of the moon sometimes slipped through small openings in the walls. Outside, the Nile continued to move slowly through the land. The river had flowed this way for thousands of years, and it would continue to flow long after the sleeping villages awoke again. The stars above. Ancient Egypt. For the people of ancient Egypt, the night sky was not empty. It was alive with meaning. Every star had a story. Many Egyptians believed the stars were connected to the souls of the dead. Some believed that great kings after death joined the stars and lived among them forever. The sky was also filled with constellations that Egyptians watched carefully. One of the most important star groups was called the Decans. These were groups of stars that rose one after another throughout the night. Priests and astronomers used them to measure time during the dark hours. By watching which decan had appeared in the sky, they could tell roughly what hour of the night it was. This system allowed Egyptians to divide the night into smaller sections, long before modern clocks existed. So while most villagers slept peacefully, temple astronomers sometimes watched the stars carefully. They studied the sky. They recorded the movement of the decans, and they quietly tracked the passing of the night. Night watchers of the temples inside the great temples of Egypt. The night followed its own rhythm. Temples were sacred places dedicated to the gods. During the day they were busy with ceremonies and offerings. But at night they became calm and silent, not completely empty, because some priests remained awake. Their duties included maintaining the sacred space. They watched over statues of the gods. They tended to small temple lamps, and sometimes they performed quiet nighttime prayers. These priests believed the gods never truly slept, so the temple could never be completely unattended. Imagine walking quietly through one of these ancient temples at night. Tall stone columns rise toward the dark ceiling. Painted walls show scenes of gods and pharaohs. Oil lamps burn softly in distant corners. The air smells faintly of incense, and in the silence, a priest moves slowly through the halls, carrying a small lamp, ensuring the temple remains peaceful and protected until morning. Dreams that changed lives back in the sleeping villages. Dreams continued to move gently through the minds of the people. Most dreams were simple. Images from the day might appear again. Fields, family members, the river. But sometimes dreams felt different, stronger, more vivid. When someone experienced a powerful dream like this, they often remembered it clearly the next morning, and sometimes these dreams influenced important decisions. A farmer might change his plans after dreaming of a warning. A traveler might delay a journey. A mother might visit a temple to pray after, dreaming of a troubling sign. Dreams were not always seen as predictions, but they were respected. They were part of the mysterious connection between humans and the divine world, and because of this belief, Egyptians tried to sleep in ways that welcomed good dreams. Clean bedding, protective amulets, prayers before rest. All these things helped create the calm conditions believed to invite positive dreams. The coolest hour before dawn as the night continues. The temperature reaches its lowest point. The desert air becomes cool, sometimes almost chilly. People sleeping under light linen coverings may pull the cloth slightly closer around themselves. The breeze moving through the village feels fresh and quiet. This is the moment just before the first birds begin to stir. The moment before the horizon begins to glow for a short time. The entire world seems suspended in silence. No voices, no footsteps, only the soft whisper of wind and water. Ancient Egyptians experienced this quiet moment every night, a peaceful pause before life began again. The first signs of morning slowly, very slowly. The sky begins to change. At first, the darkness simply becomes lighter. A deep blue replaces the black of night. The stars begin to fade, one by one. The eastern horizon develops a thin line of pale light. Birds resting in palm trees begin to shift. Some chirp softly. Fishermen sleeping near their boats stir slightly. The Nile reflects the faint colors of the approaching dawn. Inside the homes, some Egyptians begin to wake, not suddenly, but gently. Their bodies had grown used to the rhythm of the sun. There were no alarms, no clocks, only the natural signals of the world around them, and those signals were now quietly announcing the return of the sun. The victory of the sun, odd in Egyptian belief. Dawn was not just sunrise. It was the moment of victory. Throughout the night, the sun god Ra had traveled through the underworld. He had faced dangers. He had battled the great serpent Apophis. And now, as the horizon brightened, Egyptians believed Ra had won once again. The sun's return meant order had defeated chaos. Light had overcome darkness. Life could continue. This daily victory was deeply comforting. It meant the universe remained balanced. The rising sun brought warmth. It brought light, and it brought another day of life along the Nile. Waking in the ancient world. Inside the homes, families slowly begin to wake. Children stretch and rub their eyes. Parents sit up quietly on their beds. Some people step outside to greet the morning air. The village slowly comes back to life. Cooking fires will soon be lit again. Farmers will return to the fields. Boatmen will prepare their boats. And the cycle of daily life will begin once more. But before the busy sounds of the morning fully return, there is a short moment of calm, a quiet moment when the sky glows with the soft light of dawn, a moment when the night's dreams are still fresh in the mind. And for the people of ancient Egypt, it is a moment of gratitude because the sun has returned. The gods have protected them through the night, and a new day has begun along the peaceful banks of the Nile. But the story of sleep in ancient Egypt is not only about the night itself, because the way people lived during the day, the work they did, the food they ate, and the rhythms of their daily lives all shaped the peaceful sleep that came each evening along the river. The rhythm of day and night. In ancient Egypt, life followed a steady rhythm. The rising of the sun brought movement, the setting of the sun brought rest. Without bright electric lights or late-night activity, people naturally lived in harmony with the cycles of nature. The day began early, very early, often before the sun had fully appeared above the horizon. Farmers woke first. They stepped outside into the cool morning air and looked toward the eastern sky. The light slowly spread across the river. The fields began to glow with the soft colors of dawn. Soon the sounds of daily life returned. Footsteps along dirt paths, voices greeting neighbors, animals moving in their enclosures, and the slow beginning of work that would continue until evening. This simple daily rhythm helped prepare the body for sleep later that night. When the day was full of movement and sunlight, the night naturally brought deep and peaceful rest. Long days beneath the Egyptian sun. For many Egyptians, the hours between sunrise and sunset were filled with physical work. Farmers walked into the fertile fields along the Nile. They planted crops, they cut grain, they carried heavy baskets. The work could be demanding, but it was familiar. Generations of families had worked these same lands. The soil along the Nile was rich because of the yearly floods. After the river flooded, dark, fertile mud remained behind. This soil allowed crops to grow well. Wheat, barley, dalton, flax, vegetables. All of these plants supported Egyptian life, but farming required patience and effort. Under the bright Egyptian sun, people worked slowly and steadily. They paused when the heat became strong. They drank water. They rested in the shade when possible. And as the day moved forward, their bodies naturally became tired. This healthy exhaustion made the arrival of nighttime sleep feel especially welcome. Craftsmen and workers of the villages, not everyone in Egypt worked in the fields. Many people practiced skilled crafts. Carpenters shaped wood into furniture and tools. Potters spun clay on wheels, creating bowls and jars. Weavers worked with flax fibers to produce linen cloth. Stone carvers carefully shaped blocks used in buildings and temples. These workers spent long hours focusing on careful tasks. The work required patience, steady hands, and quiet concentration. Workshops were often located close to homes. The sounds of tools tapping or grinding could be heard throughout the village during the day. But as evening approached, these sounds slowly faded. Tools were set aside, workspaces were cleaned, and the craftsmen returned home to join their families. The day had been productive. Now the evening could bring rest. The importance of sunlight. The Egyptian sun shaped daily life more than people today might imagine. Sunlight was powerful. It warmed the land, it guided farmers, it lit every activity during the day. Because of this strong sunlight, Egyptians spent many hours outdoors. Their bodies followed the natural pattern of daylight. When the sun was high, people worked. When the sun disappeared, they rested. This natural balance between light and darkness helped people maintain healthy sleep patterns. The body learned when to feel alert and when to grow tired. As the sky darkened each evening, the mind and body gradually slowed. This gentle transition made falling asleep easier, and sleep came naturally when the world grew quiet. Midday, rest and shade. Although Egyptians worked hard, they also understood the importance of rest. During the hottest hours of the day, activities slowed down. The sun could become extremely strong in the afternoon. So many people paused their work, they sat in shaded areas, or rested inside their homes where thick mud brick walls kept the interior cool. Some people even took short naps during this time. These brief rests helped restore energy. They allowed workers to continue their tasks later in the day without exhaustion. This balance between work and rest was important. It helped people remain healthy, and it helped prepare them for the calm sleep that would arrive later that night. The role of food in restful sleep. Food also played a role in how Egyptians slept. Their diet was simple but nourishing. Bread remained the most important food. Fresh bread gave energy during the day. Vegetables provided nutrients. Fish from the Nile offered protein. Dates and figs added natural sweetness. Meals were usually eaten slowly. Families shared food together. There was rarely rushing. This calm approach to eating helped digestion, and it created a peaceful atmosphere inside the home. By the time evening arrived, most people had eaten a satisfying meal. Their bodies were relaxed, their hunger was gone, and this comfort made falling asleep easier. Family life and evening conversations. Evenings were often the only time families spent together after the busy workday, so people valued these moments. Parents talked quietly about the events of the day. Children listened to stories. Sometimes older family members shared memories of the past. Stories about past harvests. stories about gods and legends, or stories about famous kings. These conversations were not loud or dramatic. They were gentle, calm, and comforting. Children often fell asleep while listening, the voices of their parents becoming softer as the night continued. These peaceful family moments helped the mind relax before sleep. They created feelings of safety, and those feelings carried into dreams. Music and quiet entertainment. Sometimes evenings included simple entertainment. Music was common in Egyptian culture. People used small instruments such as flutes or simple stringed harps. The sounds were soft. Melodies were slow and repetitive. Music often accompanied quiet singing. Nothing loud or overwhelming, just gentle sounds filling the night air. Neighbors might gather briefly to share songs, or someone might play music inside the home while others listened quietly. These simple forms of entertainment helped people unwind after the long day. The calm rhythm of music eased the mind and prepared the body for rest. The natural call of sleep. As the evening continued, the body naturally began to grow tired. Eyes became heavy. Movements slowed. Children were usually the first to fall asleep. Parents followed soon after. Without artificial lights, there was little reason to stay awake late into the night. The village gradually became silent. One house after another grew dark. The stars continued their quiet movement across the sky. And once again, the people of ancient Egypt entered the peaceful world of sleep. A world protected by their gods, guided by their dreams, and surrounded by the calm rhythms of nature. And as night after night passed along the banks of the Nile, the traditions of sleep and rest continued for thousands of years, each evening repeating the same gentle cycle. Work, home, family, prayer, dreams, and the quiet arrival of sleep beneath the endless Egyptian stars. The quiet craft of preparing the bed before sleep fully arrived each night. Many Egyptian households followed small, familiar routines. These routines were simple, but they helped bring a feeling of order and calm. Preparing the sleeping space was one of the last quiet tasks of the evening. Beds in ancient Egypt were often made from wood. A wooden frame held woven ropes or strips of leather stretched tightly across it. This created a firm but flexible surface. Some beds stood slightly raised from the ground. Others were low to the floor. In poorer homes, people often slept on woven reed mats placed directly on the floor. These mats were surprisingly comfortable. They were cool in the warm climate and easy to roll up during the day. Before sleep, family members sometimes shook out their bedding. They smoothed their linen coverings. They arranged their headrests carefully. These small acts helped prepare the mind for rest. And once everything was in place, the home slowly settled into silence. The curious shape of Egyptian headrests. One object in Egyptian sleeping spaces often surprises modern visitors. Instead of soft pillows, Egyptians used curved wooden headrests. At first glance, the headrest looked simple. It usually consisted of a flat base and a curved top. The curve supported the neck while keeping the head slightly raised. To modern eyes, it may look uncomfortable, but Egyptians used these headrests for thousands of years. They served several purposes. The raised design helped keep insects away from the face during sleep. It also allowed air to circulate around the head during warm nights, but the headrest also carried symbolic meaning. Some were carved with protective images. Others included inscriptions asking the gods to guard the sleeper. Because the head was seen as an important spiritual center, protecting it during sleep was considered very important. So the humble headrest quietly became both a practical object and a symbol of protection. When someone was ill, they were often encouraged to rest and sleep. Sleep was seen as a natural medicine, a gift that allowed the body to recover. And each night across the land of Egypt, this quiet healing took place, while people slept beneath the stars. The endless cycle of Egyptian nights. Night after night, these peaceful routines continued. Families returned home. They shared meals. They washed away the dust of the day. They prayed. They prepared their beds, and then they drifted into sleep. The rhythm rarely changed. It repeated across generations, across centuries. For thousands of years, Egyptians followed this same gentle cycle, and each night ended the same way. With the calm silence of sleeping villages, the steady movement of the Nile, and the soft glow of stars above the desert sky. And somewhere far beyond the quiet villages, in the vast temples and royal palaces of Egypt, sleep followed slightly different rituals, because the lives of priests, nobles, and pharaohs brought their own nighttime traditions. Nightfall in the houses of the wealthy. While most Egyptians lived in simple mud brick homes, wealthier families experienced the night a little differently. Their houses were larger, their rooms were more numerous, and their sleeping spaces were often carefully arranged for comfort. In the homes of nobles and officials, courtyards sat at the center of the house. During the evening, these courtyards became peaceful gathering places. Palm trees or small gardens sometimes grew inside them. Stone benches lined the walls. Servants moved quietly through the house, preparing the evening meal. Oil lamps were placed in decorative holders, their light reflected softly off painted walls. The atmosphere remained calm. Even in large homes, the approach of night encouraged quiet behavior. The busy activities of the day slowly faded, just as they did in the smaller villages. Beds of wood and gold, the beds of wealthy Egyptians were more elaborate than those of ordinary families. They were often made from finely carved wood. Some beds even included decorations made from gold or ivory. The legs of these beds were sometimes carved to resemble the legs of animals. Lions were a popular design. These carvings symbolized strength and protection. The sleeping surface still used woven cords or leather strips, but linen coverings were often softer and more carefully prepared. Servants might smooth the bedding each evening, ensuring everything was ready before their master or mistress entered the room. Even with these luxuries, the basic idea of sleep remained the same. Night was still a time for rest, and the quiet rituals before sleep remained important. Perfumes and evening comfort. Wealthy Egyptians enjoyed one special comfort before sleep. Perfume. Egypt was famous for its fragrant oils. These oils were made from flowers, herbs, and tree resins. Lotus flowers were especially popular. Their scent was gentle and calming. Before sleep, some people rubbed scented oil onto their skin. Others placed small perfume cones made from scented wax on their heads during the evening. As the wax slowly melted, it released fragrance into the air. These scents created a relaxing atmosphere. The gentle smell of lotus or myrrh filled the room, helping the mind settle into a calm state before sleep. Even today, pleasant scents are known to help people relax. The Egyptians discovered this comfort thousands of years ago. Soft music. In the evening, music also played a role in the evening life of wealthy households. Musicians sometimes performed during the evening meal. The music was slow and graceful. Harp players gently plucked their strings. Flute players produced soft, flowing melodies. These sounds filled the halls of the house without disturbing the calm atmosphere. Music in ancient Egypt was rarely loud or chaotic. Instead, it followed smooth rhythms that encouraged relaxation. Guests might listen quietly. Family members might close their eyes for a moment while the music played. The gentle melodies helped the mind release the concerns of the day and prepared everyone for the quiet hours of sleep ahead. Royal sleep in the palaces of pharaohs. The most elaborate sleeping spaces in Egypt belonged to the pharaohs. Royal palaces were enormous compared to ordinary homes. They contained many rooms, corridors, and courtyards. Inside these palaces, the sleeping chambers of the pharaoh were carefully designed. Royal beds could be magnificent. Some were covered in gold leaf. Others were decorated with intricate carvings and colorful inlays. Fine linen sheets were used, sometimes layered to create extra comfort. Servants attended carefully to the room. Oil lamps provided soft lighting. Perfumed oils scented the air. But even in these royal chambers, the approach of sleep followed familiar patterns. the pharaoh washed, prayers were spoken, protective symbols were placed nearby, because even the king of Egypt respected the mysterious power of the night. Protective magic in royal bedrooms. The bedrooms of royalty often included powerful protective symbols. Statues of gods stood nearby. Images of protective deities were carved into furniture. Amulets were placed around the room. These protections were especially important for pharaohs. The king was believed to be chosen by the gods. His safety was connected to the safety of the entire kingdom. So priests and royal attendants made sure the sleeping chamber remained spiritually protected. Special prayers might be spoken before the pharaoh slept. These prayers asked the gods to guard the king through the night, just as they guarded the rising of the sun. Dreams of kings' dreams held special meaning for pharaohs. Some royal dreams were believed to carry messages from the gods themselves. Egyptian history includes several stories where kings made important decisions based on dreams. Priests carefully recorded some of these dreams. They believed the gods sometimes used dreams to guide the ruler of Egypt. One famous example comes from a young prince who later became Pharaoh Thutmose IV. According to the story, the prince once fell asleep near the Great Sphinx. While he slept, he dreamed the Sphinx spoke to him. The great stone figure promised that if the prince cleared away the sand surrounding it, he would one day become king. The prince followed this advice, and years later, he became pharaoh. Stories like this strengthened the belief that dreams could carry powerful messages, even for kings. The quiet palace. After midnight, even the largest palace eventually grew quiet at night. Servants completed their duties, torches dimmed in the hallways. Guards stood silently at entrances, the royal family slept, and the palace settled into calm stillness. Beyond the palace walls, the rest of Egypt slept as well. Villages rested beneath the stars, the Nile flowed quietly through the land, and above it all, the constellations slowly moved across the sky. For rich and poor alike, the night brought the same peaceful pause, a moment of rest between 2 days of life along the Nile, the coming of morning. Once more, as the final hours of night approached, the same quiet transformation began again. The stars slowly faded. The eastern sky grew lighter. Birds stirred in palm trees. The Nile reflected the pale glow of approaching dawn. Across Egypt, people slowly awakened. Farmers rose from their beds. Servants prepared the morning fires. Temple priests greeted the rising sun with prayers. And once again, the sun god Ra appeared on the horizon. His golden light spread across the land. The world warmed. The day began again. But everyone knew that when evening returned, the calm rituals of Egyptian night would begin once more, and sleep would again arrive beneath the endless desert sky. A gentle reflection. When we look back at the nightly traditions of ancient Egypt, we see something very simple, but also very powerful. People lived in harmony with the world around them. They followed the rising and setting of the sun. They respected the quiet hours of darkness. They valued rest. They believed sleep was not just physical recovery. It was a sacred moment, a time when the soul could travel through dreams, a time when the gods quietly watched over them. And perhaps that is why the nights of ancient Egypt felt so peaceful. Life slowed down when darkness arrived. The world grew calm, families rested together, and the stars above the Nile shone brightly over a sleeping civilization. And now, as our slow journey through the nights of ancient Egypt comes to its gentle end, the same calm still surrounds the river. The same stars still appear above the desert. And somewhere along the quiet banks of the Nile, another peaceful night is beginning once again. The eternal rhythm of Egyptian nights. Even after thousands of years, the rhythm of night in ancient Egypt continued almost unchanged. Day after day, the same cycle repeated itself. Morning brought the light of Ra. The fields filled with movement. Voices echoed through villages. Tools struck wood and stone. The Nile carried boats along its slow path. But as evening approached, that energy gently faded, the sunlight softened, the desert air cooled, and the quiet preparation for night began once more. For Egyptians, this rhythm felt eternal. It connected the past with the present, and the present with the future. Every generation experienced the same peaceful evening routines. Every child learned the same calm traditions of rest, and every family trusted the same gentle arrival of sleep. The comfort of familiar rituals. One reason Egyptian nights felt so peaceful was the comfort of familiar rituals. Human beings often relax when life follows predictable patterns. Ancient Egyptians understood this naturally. They washed their hands and faces at the end of the day. They shared meals with family. They lit oil lamps as darkness arrived. They spoke quiet prayers before sleep. Each small action prepared the body and mind for rest. These rituals were repeated night after night. Over time, they became deeply comforting. Just as hearing a familiar melody can calm the mind, repeating familiar actions helped Egyptians unwind. The body slowly learned that when these rituals began, sleep was not far away. Children, growing up with the night. For children, the night held its own special magic. During the day, they helped with small tasks. They learned skills from their parents. They played near the river or in the village streets. But evening was different. It was the moment when families gathered together. Children often listened to stories before sleep. Stories about the gods who shaped the world. Stories about brave kings and clever animals. Stories about the great Nile itself. These stories helped children understand their culture. They also helped calm their minds before bed. The sound of a parent's voice in the soft light of an oil lamp created a sense of safety. And slowly, as the story continued, the child's eyes would grow heavy. Sleep would arrive quietly, just as it had for generations before. Elders and the wisdom of the night. For older members of the family, nighttime could also be a moment for reflection. After many years of life along the Nile, elders had seen countless sunsets. They had watched the same stars appear again and again. They understood the slow rhythm of nature deeply. Sometimes elders stayed awake a little longer than others. They might sit outside their homes for a few moments, looking up at the night sky, listening to the quiet village, feeling the cool desert breeze. These peaceful moments offered time to think, to remember the past, to feel gratitude for another completed day. Eventually, they too returned inside. Their sleep often came easily, guided by the calm routines they had followed their entire lives. Night animals along the Nile. While humans slept, many animals became active. The Nile region supported a wide variety of wildlife. At night, the riverbanks came alive with subtle movement. Frogs called softly from the reeds. Owls flew silently through the darkness. Small desert animals searched for food beneath the moonlight. Occasionally, a crocodile slipped quietly through the water. But these creatures rarely disturbed the villages. People understood the rhythms of the natural world. Animals had their place. Humans had theirs. And the night belonged to both. The gentle passing of hours. Without clocks or alarms, the night passed naturally. The sky itself served as the great timekeeper. Stars slowly moved across the heavens. The moon rose and set according to its own quiet schedule. Sometimes people woke briefly during the night. They might shift their position or listen to the sounds around them. But sleep usually returned quickly. The darkness felt protective. The quiet air wrapped around the village like a blanket. And slowly, the hours drifted by. A civilization in harmony with nature. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about ancient Egyptian sleep was how closely it followed the natural world. There were no bright lights to disturb the darkness. No loud machines or crowded streets. Life moved at the pace of the sun. The day encouraged activity. The night encouraged rest. This harmony with nature allowed the mind and body to recover fully. People woke with the sunrise, they worked under the daylight, and they slept when darkness returned. The rhythm was simple, but it was powerful. It kept life balanced, and it allowed generations of Egyptians to live peacefully along the Nile. The quiet continuation of the story. As our journey through the nights of ancient Egypt continues, we begin to see that sleep was never just a physical act. It was part of a larger story, a story shaped by nature, by belief, by family, and by the steady movement of time itself. Each night carried its own small rituals, each dream carried its own quiet mystery, and each sunrise marked the beginning of another day in one of history's most fascinating civilizations. And somewhere in the distance, beyond the quiet houses and sleeping villages, the Nile continues to flow slowly beneath the stars. The silent hours before dawn, in the deepest hours of the night, Egypt became incredibly quiet. This was the time when almost everyone slept. The oil lamps had long been extinguished. The last murmurs of conversation had faded. Only the gentle sounds of nature remained. Soft breeze moved across the fields. Palm leaves whispered quietly in the darkness. The Nile continued its slow and steady journey through the land. For the people sleeping in the villages, these sounds were comforting. They were familiar. They meant everything was calm, everything was safe. Inside the homes, families rested peacefully. Children slept beside their parents. Linen coverings rose and fell with slow breathing. Dreams drifted softly through the quiet night. The stars as guides of time high. Above the land, the stars slowly moved across the sky. To ancient Egyptians, the stars were more than distant lights. They were guides. They helped measure the passage of time during the night. Priests and temple astronomers watched certain star groups known as the decans. Each group of stars rose at a different time during the night. By observing which stars appeared, they could estimate how many hours had passed since sunset. This system allowed the Egyptians to divide the night into smaller sections, long before mechanical clocks existed. While most villagers slept, these quiet watchers studied the heavens. They recorded the movement of the stars. They preserved knowledge that helped guide temple ceremonies and calendars. Even in the darkness, learning and observation continued. The moons over the Nile. The moon also played an important role in the Egyptian night. On clear evenings, its silver light illuminated the riverbanks. The moon reflected across the surface of the Nile like a long, shimmering path. During a full moon, the land was surprisingly bright. People could see the outlines of palm trees and houses. Travel along the river was easier. Fishermen sometimes worked by moonlight. Boatmen guided their vessels slowly through the quiet water. But on nights when the moon was thin or hidden, the darkness became deeper. Villages relied entirely on starlight and small oil lamps. The changing shape of the moon fascinated the Egyptians. They watched its cycles carefully. Just like the rising and setting of the sun, the moon followed a pattern that helped organize life. The calm work of night guards. Although most people slept through the night, some remained awake to protect the village. Night guards walked quietly through larger communities. Their job was simple but important. They watched for fire. They listened for unusual sounds. They ensured that no danger approached during the sleeping hours. These guards moved slowly along the streets, sometimes carrying a small torch. sometimes walking beneath the soft light of the moon. The villages were usually peaceful places. Serious trouble during the night was rare, but the presence of watchful guards added another layer of comfort. Families slept more easily, knowing someone remained awake to protect the community. The temple lamps that never went out. Inside the great temples of Egypt, certain lamps burned throughout the entire night. Priests believed the sacred spaces of the gods should never fall into complete darkness. So temple attendants quietly tended the lamps. They refilled oil, they trimmed the wicks, they ensured the gentle flames continued to glow. These lamps illuminated statues of the gods. Images of Ra, Osiris, Isis, and many others stood silently within the temple halls. The quiet light created a peaceful atmosphere. Even in the middle of the night, the temples felt alive, not with noise, but with calm presence. The gods, Egyptians believed, were always watching, always protecting the balance of the world. The soft breath of the desert beyond the villages and temples stretched the vast Egyptian desert. At night, the desert air cooled quickly. The heat of the day faded away. A gentle breeze often moved across the sand. This cool air traveled toward the river. It passed through palm groves. It slipped quietly through village streets. Inside the homes, people sometimes felt this cool night air moving through small openings in the walls. It helped make sleeping comfortable, especially during the warmer seasons. This desert breeze was another quiet part of the Egyptian night, a reminder that nature surrounded every village and every home. The deepest rest of the night during these silent hours, sleep became its deepest. The body relaxed completely. Breathing slowed. Dreams unfolded in peaceful patterns. Children slept soundly beside their parents. Farmers recovered their strength after long days of labor. Craftsmen rested their tired hands. Priests gathered energy for the rituals of the coming day. Across Egypt, thousands of sleeping homes shared this same quiet moment. A civilization resting together beneath the stars. The first light of a new day. Eventually the night began to loosen its hold. The stars slowly faded. A faint line of pale light appeared in the eastern sky. Birds began to stir. Palm leaves moved gently in the early breeze. Inside the homes, some people began to wake, not suddenly, but slowly. The body naturally sensed the coming dawn. Soon the horizon glowed with soft orange light. The sun god Ra rose once again into the sky. His golden light spread across the Nile. The villages awakened. Cooking fires were lit. Farmers prepared their tools. Children rubbed their sleepy eyes, and the ancient rhythm of Egyptian life began once again. And as another day unfolded along the river, everyone knew that when the sun eventually set again, the peaceful rituals of Egyptian night would return. The lamps would glow, the stars would appear, and sleep would once again settle gently across the land of the Nile. The calm promise of another evening as the sun continued its slow journey across the Egyptian sky. People carried on with their daily work. The morning light grew bright, fields filled with movement. Boats glided along the Nile. The familiar rhythm of the day returned once more. Yet even during the busy hours, people understood something comforting. The day would not last forever. Just as night always gave way to morning, morning would eventually return to evening. And when the sun slowly began to descend again, the peaceful rituals of rest would begin once more. This predictable cycle gave life in ancient Egypt a sense of balance. People trusted the pattern of the sun, they trusted the rhythm of nature. And because of this trust, their lives moved with calm steadiness. The warm glow of the late afternoon, as the day moved toward afternoon, the heat of the sun softened. Shadows grew longer across the fields. Farmers slowed their work. craftsmen began finishing their final tasks. The bright intensity of midday faded into the warm golden light of late afternoon. This moment felt different. From the rest of the day, the air grew slightly cooler. The sounds of work began to quiet. People could feel that evening was approaching. It was a gentle reminder that the time of rest was drawing closer. The return of the village, one by one. People began returning home. Farmers carried their tools back from the fields. Fishermen pulled their boats toward the riverbank. Craftsmen closed their workshops. Dusty roads slowly filled with familiar faces walking back toward the village. Neighbors greeted each other quietly. Children ran ahead toward their homes. The village slowly filled again with life. Smoke began to rise from cooking fires. The smell of bread drifted through the warm air. The peaceful evening atmosphere returned just as it had the night before, preparing for the comfort of home. Inside the homes, families began their evening routines once again. Clay ovens were warmed for baking bread. Water jars were checked and refilled. Reed mats were straightened. Small oil lamps were prepared for lighting. These simple actions were repeated every evening. They required little effort, yet they helped signal the transition from the busy day to the calm night. The home slowly became a place of comfort again, a place where work ended and rest began. Children and the joy of evening for children. Evening often brought moments of quiet happiness. Their daily chores were finished. The heat of the sun had faded. They could relax beside their parents. Sometimes they played gentle games with their siblings. Other times they simply listened to the conversations of the adults. The evening meal was often their favorite moment. The smell of warm bread filled the room. Simple foods tasted especially good after a long day. Children ate slowly, enjoying the calm atmosphere. Their laughter was soft and cheerful, and as the evening grew darker, their energy slowly faded. Sleep would soon find them, just as it always did. Lamps that welcome the night. When darkness finally arrived, the oil lamps were lit once again. The tiny flames flickered softly. Their light created warm patterns on the walls of the house. The glow was gentle, not harsh. It encouraged quiet conversation and relaxation. People moved more slowly under this soft light. Their voices grew calmer. Their bodies began to relax after the long day. These lamps served an important purpose. They allowed families to remain together even after the sun had disappeared. But they also signaled that night had begun. Soon the lamps would be extinguished and sleep would follow. The night sky returns. Outside the village, the sky slowly filled with stars again. The deep blue darkness spread across the desert. The Milky Way appeared once more above the Nile. Ancient Egyptians admired the beauty of this sky every night. To them, the stars were not distant objects. They were part of the great cosmic order. Some believed that the souls of the blessed dead joined the stars. Others saw the stars as companions to the sun, god Ra, during his journey. Looking up at the sky reminded people that their world was part of something much larger. It created a feeling of calm wonder, a feeling that everything in the universe followed its own peaceful rhythm. The gentle arrival of sleep inside. The homes, families slowly prepared for rest. Linen cloths were arranged. Headrests were placed carefully beside the beds. Children lay down first. Parents followed soon after. The oil lamps were extinguished one by one. Darkness returned to the house. Outside, the quiet sounds of the night resumed. The breeze moved through palm leaves. Crickets sang softly in the grass. The Nile flowed slowly beneath the stars, and once again, sleep settled gently across ancient Egypt. The endless cycle continues night after night. This peaceful rhythm continued. Work during the day, rest during the night. Dreams beneath the stars. The people of ancient Egypt lived in harmony with this cycle. They trusted the sun to rise again. They trusted the night to bring rest. And they trusted that the calm rituals of evening would guide them into sleep. For thousands of years, this simple balance shaped life along the Nile, and every evening as the sun slipped below the horizon, the quiet world of Egyptian night returned once more. When the desert air begins to cool, as the sun disappears below the western horizon, something gentle begins to happen across the land of Egypt. The intense warmth of the day slowly fades. The desert air begins to cool. Shadows stretch across the fields and village paths. Palm trees sway quietly in the soft evening breeze. For the people of ancient Egypt, this moment felt like a deep breath after a long day. The heat had passed, the work was finished, and the calm hours of evening were finally beginning. Farmers placed their tools beside the walls of their homes. Fishermen secured their small boats along the edge of the Nile. Craftsmen brushed dust from their hands and closed the doors of their workshops. One by one, the sounds of labor faded away. In their place came the quiet comfort of home, the smell of bread in the evening air. Across the village, clay ovens were warming once again. Families prepared the evening meal just as they had the night before. Fresh dough was shaped carefully by hand. The small round loaves were placed inside the hot ovens. Soon the smell of baking bread began to drift through the air. This scent was one of the most familiar parts of Egyptian life. It meant the day was ending. It meant families were gathering together. It meant warmth and comfort filled the home. People often said that a house did not truly feel like home until the smell of bread filled its rooms. Children noticed it immediately. Their stomachs growled softly as they waited for the meal to be ready, and the simple joy of sharing food together brought peace after the long day. The calm of shared moments. Evenings in ancient Egypt were rarely rushed. After the meal was prepared, families sat together. They ate slowly. They talked quietly. Sometimes neighbors visited one another for a short time. They exchanged small stories about the events of the day. Perhaps someone spoke about the condition of the crops or about the movement of the river. These conversations were gentle and relaxed. There was no hurry. The night allowed people to slow down, and this slower pace helped the mind release the tension of work. Laughter sometimes appeared in small bursts. Children listened closely to the stories of adults. The warmth of family filled the room, and slowly, the peaceful feeling of night settled over everyone. The glow of lamps in mud brick homes as darkness spread across the village. The oil lamps were lit once more. The tiny flames flickered softly inside the homes, their light reflected against the pale walls. Shadows moved slowly across the room. The glow of these lamps created a calm atmosphere. Nothing felt bright or overwhelming. The light simply allowed people to see each other's faces, to finish small evening tasks, or to sit quietly together. Outside, the village streets grew darker. But inside each home, the warm glow of the lamps created a sense of safety. A small island of light in the quiet desert night. Stories that drift into sleep. As the evening continued, parents often told stories to their children. These stories had been passed down through generations. Some told of clever animals who solved problems with wisdom. Others told of gods who protected the land of Egypt, and some told of brave kings who built great temples and monuments. The purpose of these stories was not excitement, it was comfort. The steady voice of a parent helped children relax. The rhythm of the stories slowed their thoughts. Their eyes began to close slowly. One by one, the younger children drifted into sleep. Their breathing became soft and steady. The quiet magic of bedtime stories had worked once again. Outside, beneath the open sky, while some families prepared their beds inside their homes, others stepped outside for a few peaceful moments. The night sky above Egypt was incredibly clear. Thousands of stars filled the darkness. Without modern lights, the sky appeared bright and endless. The Milky Way stretched across the heavens like a pale, glowing river. People sometimes stood silently, for a moment, looking upward. They felt small beneath the vast sky. Yet they also felt connected to something greater. The stars had watched over Egypt for thousands of years, and they would continue to shine for thousands more. The village slowly falls. Silent, as the night deepened, the village gradually became quieter. Doors closed, oil lamps dimmed, the final voices faded. Dogs settled beside doorways. Animals rested inside their shelters. The gentle sounds of nature replaced the sounds of human activity. Crickets chirped softly in the grass. Frogs called near the riverbank. Palm leaves rustled gently in the cool night breeze. These quiet sounds became the background music of Egyptian nights, a natural lullaby that helped people drift into sleep. The gentle embrace of rest inside the homes. Families prepared their sleeping places. Linen coverings were arranged carefully. Headrests were positioned beneath the neck. Children curled beneath soft cloths. Parents lay down beside them. The oil lamps were slowly extinguished. Darkness filled the room, but it was not an uncomfortable darkness. It felt calm, protective, peaceful. The body relaxed, breathing slowed, and once again, sleep gently arrived across the villages of ancient Egypt. Another peaceful night. Along the Nile outside, the Nile continued its quiet journey through the land. The river reflected the light of the stars. The desert air moved softly through the palm groves. Above everything stretched the endless sky, and beneath that sky, the people of Egypt slept peacefully. Their dreams carried them into the mysterious world of night, a world where the spirit wandered, where the gods quietly watched, and where the calm rhythm of life continued without interruption. Night after night, year after year, century after century, the same peaceful ritual of rest unfolded along the banks of the Nile, the deep silence of the sleeping land as the night settled fully across ancient Egypt. A deep and comforting silence spread over the land. The busy sounds of the day were gone. The voices of farmers had faded. The tapping of craftsmen's tools had stopped. The quiet villages now rested beneath the wide desert sky. Inside the homes, families slept peacefully. Children curled beneath soft linen cloth. Parents rested after long hours of work beneath the sun. The gentle rhythm of breathing filled the dark rooms. Outside, the Nile continued its slow and endless journey. The river moved quietly through the night, just as it had for thousands of years. For the sleeping villages along its banks, this steady flow was a familiar and comforting presence, the soft music of the night. Although the villages were silent, the night itself was never completely still. Nature continued its quiet activity. Crickets sang softly in the tall grasses. Frogs called from the reeds near the water. Occasionally an owl glided silently across the sky. The wings of the bird made almost no sound, but its presence reminded the night that life still moved quietly in the darkness. These sounds were gentle and steady to the people of Egypt. They were part of the natural lullaby of the night, a soft music that helped guide the mind deeper into sleep. The moon's quiet watch above the land. The moon often rose slowly into the sky. Sometimes it appeared as a thin silver curve, other times it was round and bright. When the moon was full, The villages and riverbanks glowed faintly under its light. Palm trees cast long shadows across the ground. The Nile reflected the moon like a shimmering ribbon of silver. On these bright nights, travelers could move carefully along the paths. Fishermen sometimes worked quietly along the river, but most people simply slept. The moon became a silent watcher over the peaceful land. Its slow movement across the sky marked the passing of the night, the dreams of ordinary people. While their bodies rested, the minds of Egyptians wandered through dreams. Dreams could be simple reflections of the day. A farmer might dream of the fields, a fisherman might dream of the river. Children often dreamed of games or stories they had heard before sleep. But sometimes dreams felt more mysterious. They carried strange images or powerful emotions. When someone woke from a dream like this, they might remember it clearly the next morning, and they might wonder whether the dream held a hidden message. Because for the people of ancient Egypt, dreams were never completely ordinary. They were part of the invisible world that existed beside everyday life. The peaceful patience of the night in ancient Egypt, did not hurry. Hours passed slowly. There were no clocks to measure each moment. The sky itself served as the quiet guide of time. Stars moved slowly across the heavens. The moon traveled steadily along its path, and somewhere far beyond the horizon, the sun god Ra continued his unseen journey through the underworld. People slept through these silent hours without worry. They trusted the balance of the world, they trusted that the sun would return, and they trusted that the quiet darkness of night was part of the natural order of life, the cool breath before dawn. As the night moved toward its final hours, the air became even cooler. The desert released the heat it had gathered during the day. A gentle chill sometimes touched the village streets. People sleeping beneath light linen coverings pulled them slightly closer. The breeze moved softly through the palm trees. These moments just before dawn were among the calmest of the entire night. Everything felt still. The world seemed to pause for a brief moment, as if waiting for the first light of a new day. The first birds awakened slowly. The silence began to change. Birds resting in the palm trees stirred gently. One bird chirped softly. Then another answered. The sky in the east began to lighten slightly. The stars faded one by one. The Nile reflected the faint glow of the approaching dawn. Inside the homes, some people began to wake naturally. Their bodies had grown used to the rhythm of the sun. They opened their eyes slowly. They stretched quietly, and they listened to the gentle sounds of the early morning. The return of the sun when the horizon glowed with warm colors. Soft orange light spread across the land. The sun god Ra rose once again into the sky. For the people of ancient Egypt, this moment was deeply reassuring. It meant the world remained balanced. The forces of darkness had not overcome the light. Life could continue. Farmers stepped outside their homes, fishermen prepared their boats, children rubbed their sleepy eyes, and the ancient rhythm of life along the Nile began once more. The endless cycle of day and night. This peaceful cycle repeated itself every day. Work beneath the sun, rest beneath the stars. The people of Egypt trusted this pattern completely. It shaped their lives, it guided their routines, and it allowed them to live in harmony with the natural world. Each evening, they returned home. Each night, they drifted into sleep. And each morning, they woke again to the rising sun. For thousands of years, this gentle rhythm continued along the banks of the Nile. A quiet balance between daylight and darkness, between effort and rest, between the busy hours of life and the peaceful embrace of sleep. The calm between two worlds. For the people of ancient Egypt, sleep was more than simply resting after a long day. It felt like a quiet bridge between two worlds. The world of waking life and the mysterious world of dreams. When the eyes closed and the body became still, something deeper seemed to happen. The mind drifted into places beyond the village, beyond the river, beyond even the desert. Ancient Egyptians believed that during sleep, the spirit could wander, not in a frightening way, but in a gentle and natural way. They believed the soul could travel through the unseen parts of the world, sometimes meeting memories, sometimes seeing symbols, sometimes receiving quiet messages from the divine. Because of this belief, sleep was treated with respect. It was not rushed. It was welcomed as a peaceful part of life. The balance of the body. The Egyptians also understood something very important about the body. They noticed that when people slept well, they felt stronger the next day. Farmers could work longer in the fields. Craftsmen could shape their tools more carefully. Children had more energy for learning and play. But when someone slept poorly, the body felt weak, the mind became slow, work felt harder. Even though they did not know modern science, Egyptians clearly understood that sleep helped restore strength. So they protected their nightly rest. They avoided unnecessary activity during the late hours. They allowed the quiet of night to do its work. And in doing so, they supported the natural healing power of sleep. The role of cleanliness. Before bed, cleanliness was another important part of Egyptian nighttime routines. After spending hours working in dusty fields or busy workshops, people often washed before sleep. Water carried from the Nile was stored in clay jars. Families used small bowls to pour cool water over their hands and faces. Sometimes they washed their feet as well. This simple act helped remove the dust of the day, but it also created a feeling of renewal. The cool water refreshed the body. It signaled that the work of the day had ended and that the peaceful hours of rest were beginning. For many Egyptians, washing before bed became a quiet ritual of transition, a moment that separated the busy world of daylight from the calm world of sleep. Linen, the fabric of comfort. Egypt was famous for its linen. This soft cloth was made from the fibers of the flax plant. Farmers grew flax along the fertile banks of the Nile. Workers carefully processed the fibers into thread. Then skilled weavers created beautiful linen fabric. Linen was light and breathable, perfect for the warm climate of Egypt. People wore linen clothing during the day, and at night, linen cloth often served as bedding. Families spread linen sheets across their beds or mats. The fabric felt cool against the skin. It allowed air to move freely, helping the body stay comfortable during sleep. Even today, linen remains one of the most valued fabrics for bedding. The Egyptians discovered its comfort thousands of years ago, the protective presence of the gods. As families prepared for sleep, many believed that the gods continued watching over them. Egyptian religion was woven into every part of daily life, and nighttime was no exception. People believed certain gods were especially active during the night. Bes, the small guardian god, protected families from bad dreams. Taweret, the gentle protector, watched over mothers and children. Other deities were believed to guard the balance of the universe while humans slept. So these beliefs gave people comfort. They felt protected, even in the darkness of night. Small statues or carved images of these gods often stood inside the home. Their silent presence reminded families that they were never alone. The peaceful sound of breathing. As sleep deepened, the homes of ancient Egypt filled with one quiet sound. Breathing. Slow, steady, calm. Children breathed softly beneath their linen coverings. Parents rested beside them. The entire household shared the same peaceful stillness. Outside, the world continued moving quietly. The Nile flowed, the breeze passed through palm leaves, stars drifted across the sky. But inside the homes, the gentle rhythm of breathing became the soft heartbeat of the night, a sign that everyone was safe, everyone was resting, everyone was preparing for the new day that would soon arrive. The stars watching over Egypt. Above the sleeping land, the sky remained clear and wide. Thousands of stars filled the darkness. To the ancient Egyptians, these stars were not distant and empty. They were part of a sacred order. Some stars were believed to be the homes of powerful spirits. Others were connected to stories about the gods. Priests carefully studied these stars. They used them to measure time. They used them to guide religious ceremonies. But for ordinary villagers lying on their rooftops or inside their homes, the stars were simply beautiful. They watched over the land like silent guardians. Their light shimmered softly above the Nile, a quiet reminder of the vast universe surrounding the sleeping world. The gentle approach of dawn. Eventually, the long night began to soften. The darkness slowly faded. The stars lost their brightness. Far to the east, a faint glow began to appear. The desert breeze carried the first signs of morning. Birds stirred gently among the trees. The Nile reflected the pale light of the coming sun. Inside the homes, people began to wake slowly. Their bodies had rested. Their minds felt refreshed. Another night had passed peacefully, and another day was ready to begin. The eternal cycle of rest and renewal. For thousands of years, this quiet cycle repeated across ancient Egypt. Morning brought activity. Daylight brought work. Evening brought calm. And night brought sleep. The people of Egypt trusted this rhythm completely. It connected them to nature, it connected them to the gods, and it connected each generation to the one that came before. Life flowed gently along the Nile, just as the river itself flowed through the land. And every night, beneath the endless sky, sleep returned once again. Soft, peaceful, and deeply woven into the rhythm of Egyptian life, the quiet wisdom of the night for the people of ancient Egypt. Night was not something to fear, it was something to respect, something to listen to, something to learn from. When the sun disappeared and the land became calm, the world seemed to slow down. In that quiet stillness, people often felt closer to nature, closer to their families, and sometimes closer to the gods. The darkness of night allowed the mind to rest from the constant movement of the day. Thoughts became softer. Breathing became slower. The body released the weight of work. In many ways, the night was like a teacher. It reminded people that rest was just as important as effort, that silence could be as meaningful as sound, and that peace could be found in the simplest moments. Watching the sky before sleep, some Egyptians enjoyed spending a few quiet moments outside before going to bed. After the evening meal and final chores were finished, they might step outside their homes. The air felt cooler now. The desert breeze moved gently across the village. Above them stretched the immense Egyptian sky. Without bright lights from cities, the stars appeared incredibly clear. Thousands of tiny lights scattered across the darkness. The Milky Way stretched like a glowing path above the world. People sometimes stood silently watching the sky. It reminded them how vast the universe was, how small their village was within it, and yet how connected everything seemed to be. These quiet moments often helped calm the mind before sleep. Families sleeping together. In many Egyptian homes, family members slept in the same room. Space inside the house was limited, but this closeness created a strong sense of comfort. Parents slept beside their children, sometimes several generations, shared the same sleeping space. The presence of family brought reassurance. If someone woke briefly during the night, they could hear the gentle breathing of others nearby. That sound alone could bring a feeling of safety. It reminded them that they were not alone, that their home was filled with people who cared for one another. This closeness strengthened family bonds, and it made the quiet hours of night feel warm and secure. The calm simplicity of Egyptian life. When we look back at the nightly routines of ancient Egypt, one thing becomes clear. Life moved at a slower pace. People did not rush from one activity to another late into the night. The setting sun naturally signaled the end of work. Evening encouraged calm. Families spent time together, stories were shared, prayers were spoken, and when sleep arrived, people welcomed it. This simplicity allowed the mind to relax. There were fewer distractions, fewer interruptions. The natural world guided everything, and that guidance created a peaceful rhythm of life. The gentle protection of the gods as families drifted into sleep. Many believed the gods continued watching over them. Small statues or amulets placed inside the home served as reminders of this protection. Bes guarded against bad dreams. Taweret protected mothers and children. Other gods watched over the balance of the universe. These beliefs helped people feel safe during the night. They trusted that unseen forces were maintaining order in the world, even while humans slept. The presence of these protective symbols gave comfort. The night no longer felt uncertain. Instead, it felt guarded and peaceful. The soft passage of time. During the quiet hours of the night, time seemed to move differently. Without clocks or alarms, the passing of hours felt gentle. The sky slowly changed. Stars shifted across the heavens. The moon moved silently along its path. These slow changes marked the progress of the night, but no one rushed them. The darkness was allowed to unfold naturally. Sleep came when the body needed it, and waking came when the sun returned. This natural relationship with time helped people rest deeply. Their lives were not driven by strict schedules, they were guided by the rhythms of nature, the river that never slept. While people rested, one part of Egypt never stopped moving. The Nile. The great river flowed day and night. Its waters traveled steadily through the land, feeding the fields, supporting the villages, shaping the entire civilization. At night, the river became especially peaceful. The busy boats of the day were gone. The surface of the water grew calm. Moonlight shimmered gently across the current. For people living near the river, its quiet sound became part of their sleep, a soft reminder that life continued even while they rested. The calm breath of a sleeping civilization across the land of Egypt. Thousands of homes rested beneath the same night sky. Farmers slept after their long work in the fields. Craftsmen rested their tired hands. Children dreamed quietly beside their parents. Priests slept inside temple quarters. Even the great pharaoh rested within the palace. For a few hours each night, the entire civilization paused. The noise of life faded. The world became still, and beneath the stars, Egypt breathed slowly and peacefully. The first hint of morning eventually, the quiet darkness, began to soften far in the east. The sky grew lighter. The faint glow of dawn appeared once more. Birds began to stir among the palm trees. The air carried the fresh scent of morning. Inside the homes, people slowly opened their eyes. Their bodies felt rested. Their minds felt clear. Another night had passed, and another day was ready to begin. The first warm light of morning as the sun god Ra slowly rose above the horizon. His warm golden light spread gently across the land of Egypt. The sky changed from soft shades of blue into pale orange and gold. Palm trees glowed in the early sunlight. The quiet villages along the Nile slowly began to awaken. Birds moved through the branches, greeting the new day with soft calls. The air carried the cool freshness that only exists in the early morning. For a few peaceful moments, the land remained calm. The night had ended, but the busy sounds of the day had not fully returned yet. This was the gentle space between sleep and activity, a quiet beginning to another day along the river. Waking with the sun, most Egyptians woke naturally with the rising sun, without clocks or alarms. Their bodies followed the rhythm of daylight. The first rays of sunlight often slipped through small openings in the mud brick homes. The warmth touched the walls and floors. Slowly people stirred from sleep. Children stretched beneath their linen coverings. Parents sat up quietly on their beds. Some people stepped outside immediately, greeting the cool morning air. Others remained inside for a moment, letting their bodies wake slowly. The transition from sleep to wakefulness was never rushed. Morning unfolded gently, just as the night had. The first sounds of the village. Soon the far village began to fill with familiar sounds. A door opened. Footsteps moved along the dusty paths. Someone carried water from a storage jar. A small cooking fire crackled to life. These early sounds signaled that the new day had begun. Neighbors greeted one another quietly. Farmers prepared their tools. Children helped with simple morning chores. The calm silence of night slowly transformed into the soft activity of morning life. Yet the peaceful feeling of the night still lingered in the air. Remembering the night's dreams, sometimes people woke with memories of their dreams. If a dream felt especially vivid, they might talk about it with family members. Dreams were often discussed during the morning meal. Someone might describe a strange image they had seen while sleeping. Perhaps they dreamed of clear water flowing through a field, or of walking through a temple, or of meeting someone who had passed away. These dreams were not dismissed as meaningless. Instead, they were listened to carefully. Family members sometimes offered their own thoughts about the dream. What might it mean? Was it a good sign, or simply the mind remembering the events of the day before? These quiet morning conversations were another way people reflected on the mysteries of sleep. The return to daily life. Soon the sun climbed higher into the sky. Its light became stronger. The village grew busier. Farmers walked toward the fertile fields along the Nile. Fishermen untied their boats from the riverbank. Craftsmen opened their workshops. The rhythm of work returned once again. Children helped carry small baskets, women prepared food, and managed household tasks. The peaceful stillness of the night slowly faded into the activity of the day. But the memory of rest remained. The body felt renewed. The mind felt calm. Sleep had done its quiet work. The quiet power of rest. For the people of ancient Egypt, sleep was not something separate from life. It was an essential part of the cycle that kept everything balanced. Work required energy. Energy required rest. And rest came each night beneath the stars. The Egyptians did not try to escape the darkness of night. They embraced it. They trusted it. They believed the night held its own special purpose in the order of the world. And because they respected this balance, sleep often came naturally. Their lives followed the rhythm of the sun, the river, and the seasons. This harmony allowed them to live with calm stability for thousands of years. The Nile continues its journey. While people returned to their daily tasks, the Nile continued flowing as it always had. The The river was the heart of Egyptian life. Its waters nourished the crops. Its currents carried boats between cities. Its presence shaped every village along its banks. Day and night, the Nile moved steadily. Through the land, it did not hurry, it did not stop. Just like the cycle of sleep and waking, the river followed its own peaceful rhythm. The Egyptians understood this connection. The rhythm of the river reminded them of the rhythm of life itself. Constant, reliable, endless. The promise of another night. As the day continued, the sun moved slowly across the sky. Farmers worked beneath its light. Children learned from their parents. Craftsmen shaped wood, stone, and clay. Life unfolded exactly as it had for generations. But everyone knew something certain. Eventually the sun would begin to descend again. Evening would return. The warm light of sunset would spread across the Nile. Families would gather inside. Their homes, oil lamps would glow softly. And once again, the peaceful rituals of night would begin. Sleep would arrive gently. Dreams would wander quietly through the mind, and beneath the endless Egyptian sky, another calm night would embrace the land along the Nile. The quiet return of evening as the long Egyptian day slowly moved toward its end. The sunlight began to soften once again. The bright heat of midday faded into a warm golden glow. Shadows stretched across the fields beside the Nile. Farmers finished their final tasks. They gathered their tools and wiped the dust from their hands. Fishermen guided their boats gently toward the riverbank. Craftsmen placed their tools back in their workshops. The busy movement of the day slowly began to slow, just as it had the day before and the day before that across Egypt. People felt the familiar calm of evening approaching. The world was preparing itself for rest once again. The long shadows of sunset, the sun slowly lowered toward the western horizon. The sky changed colors gently, orange, gold, and soft shades of purple. Palm trees cast long shadows across the village paths. The surface of the Nile reflected the glowing sky like a mirror. Many Egyptians paused for a moment to watch this quiet transformation. Sunset was always beautiful along the river, and it reminded everyone that the peaceful hours of night were drawing closer. Children finished their games and followed their parents home. Neighbors exchanged quiet greetings as they passed one another. The village slowly filled with the comforting feeling of returning home, the warm comfort of home. Inside the houses, evening routines began again. Clay ovens were warmed for baking bread, water jars were opened, reed mats were placed neatly across the floor. The familiar smell of cooking food filled the air. Families gathered together after the long day. Parents asked about the events of the afternoon. Children shared small stories about their adventures. The voices inside the homes were gentle and relaxed. No one hurried. Evening was a time for slowing down, a time for leaving the work of the day behind and preparing the mind and body for rest. The gentle glow of evening lamps as darkness slowly spread across the land. Oil lamps were lit once more. Their tiny flames flickered softly inside the homes. The warm glow illuminated the walls. Shadows danced quietly across the rooms. These small lamps provided just enough light for the evening, but they also helped signal the arrival of night. Under the gentle glow, conversations grew softer. Movements became slower. The mind began to relax. The body felt the peaceful transition from activity to rest. The stories that carry through. Generations' evenings often brought the sharing of stories. Parents told children of tales that had been passed down through generations. Stories about clever animals who solved problems with wisdom. Stories about powerful gods who protected Egypt. Stories about brave kings who built temples and monuments. These stories were not meant to excite the mind too much. Instead, they were told in calm voices, slowly, gently. Their rhythm helped children relax before sleep. Many children drifted off before the story even finished, their dreams carrying pieces of those stories into the night. The return of the stars outside, the sky grew darker. The first stars appeared above the village, then more and more. Soon the entire sky shimmered with thousands of tiny lights. Without the bright lights of modern cities, the night sky in ancient Egypt was incredibly clear. The Milky Way stretched across the heavens like a faint, glowing path. People sometimes stepped outside their homes for a few quiet moments. They looked upward at the stars, they breathed the cool, desert air, and they felt the peaceful silence of the night surrounding them. Preparing once more for sleep inside the homes, the final preparations for sleep began. Linen coverings were arranged, headrests were placed carefully beside the beds. Children lay down first, parents followed shortly after. The oil lamps were slowly extinguished, darkness filled the room, but it was a comforting darkness, not empty, not frightening, just quiet. The gentle sounds of the night continued outside. The breeze moved through the palm leaves, crickets sang softly, and the Nile flowed slowly through the darkness. The quiet embrace of night once again. The villages of Egypt fell into peaceful silence. Thousands of homes rested beneath the stars. Families slept beside one another. Dreams drifted through quiet minds. The gods watched over the land, and the endless cycle of day and night continued, exactly as it always had. Work beneath the sun, rest beneath the stars. Dreams carried by the calm rhythm of sleep. The timeless peace of the Nile for thousands of years. This peaceful pattern shaped life along the Nile. Generations were born into it. They grew up beneath the same sky. They followed the same evening rituals, and they trusted the same quiet arrival of sleep each night. The Nile flowed steadily beside them. The stars watched silently above them, and every evening, as the sun disappeared once more beyond the western desert, the calm world of Egyptian night returned again. The gentle end of another day. As the sun finally disappeared beyond the western desert, the land of Egypt settled once more into the calm embrace of night. The golden light faded slowly from the sky, among soft shades of purple and deep blue spread across the horizon. The warmth of the day slipped away with the setting sun. A cool desert breeze moved quietly through the palm trees and along the riverbanks. For the people of ancient Egypt, this moment always felt familiar. It was the peaceful ending to another long day. Work was finished. The fields were quiet. The river flowed calmly beneath the darkening sky. And once again, families gathered inside their homes as the world slowly grew silent. The final light of the oil lamps inside the mud brick houses, the small oil lamps were lit one last time. Their flames flickered gently against the walls. The soft golden light filled the rooms with warmth. Families spoke quietly with one another. Children sat close to their parents. The air carried the comforting smell of baked bread and cooked vegetables. These simple moments were some of the most peaceful of the entire day. Nothing needed to be hurried. Nothing needed to be rushed. The night invited people to slow down, to rest their bodies, and to enjoy the calm presence of home. The last conversations of the evening before sleep, families often shared a few final conversations. They spoke softly about the day that had passed. Perhaps a farmer mentioned how the crops were growing beside the Nile. Perhaps someone remembered a dream from the previous night. Sometimes laughter appeared quietly among the family members. Other times the conversations were gentle and thoughtful. Parents reminded their children of the small lessons of life. To be patient, to respect the gods, to care for their neighbors. These simple teachings were passed from one generation to the next during these quiet evening hours. When the lamps grow dimmers. The evening continued, the oil lamps began to burn lower, the tiny flames grew smaller, their light softened even more. Soon it was time for sleep. One by one, the lamps were carefully extinguished. Darkness slowly filled the room. But this darkness was not frightening, it felt calm and protective. Outside, the sky was filled with stars. Their faint light entered through small openings in the walls. The quiet beauty of the night surrounded the sleeping homes. The comfort of shared sleep families settled into their sleeping places. Some lay on wooden beds. Others rested on woven reed mats. Soft linen cloth covered their bodies. The curved wooden headrests supported their necks. Children slept beside their parents. Sometimes several generations shared the same room. Grandparents, parents, and young children. The gentle sound of breathing filled the quiet space. Each person resting after the long day. Each person protected by the calm stillness of the night. The Nile beneath the stars, outside the village. The Nile continued its endless journey. The river moved quietly through the darkness. Its waters reflected the soft glow of the stars above. Palm trees stood like silent guardians along the riverbanks. The desert stretched beyond them, calm and empty, beneath the sky. For thousands of years the Nile had watched over Egypt. It had nourished the land, it had supported the people, and every night it continued flowing while the villages slept peacefully beside it. Dreams beneath the ancient sky as sleep deepened. Dreams began to drift through the minds of the people. Some dreams were simple, memories of the fields or of the river. Others felt more mysterious. Strange images or symbols appeared quietly in the mind. Many Egyptians believed these dreams carried hidden meanings, messages from the gods, or reflections of the spirit's journey during the night. Whether ordinary or mysterious, dreams were welcomed. They were part of the natural rhythm of sleep, and they connected the sleeping mind with the unseen world, the silent hours of rest. Through the deepest hours of the night, Egypt rested. Villages remained quiet. Temples stood silent beneath the stars. Even the great palaces of the pharaoh were calm. Across the land, thousands of families slept peacefully, their breathing slow, their bodies recovering from the effort of the day. Above them, the stars slowly moved across the sky. And somewhere beyond the darkness, the sun god Ra continued his mysterious journey through the underworld. The promise of morning eventually, the night would begin to fade. The stars would grow dim. A pale glow would appear in the east. Birds would stir among the trees. The first light of morning would return to the land, and once again, the sun would rise above the Nile. The people of Egypt would wake, their bodies refreshed, their minds calm, ready to begin another day beneath the warm Egyptian sky. A gentle good night, and so, as we leave the quiet villages of ancient Egypt behind us, the night remains peaceful along the river. The Nile continues its endless flow. The stars shine softly above the desert. Families rest quietly inside their homes. The world is calm, still and wrapped in the gentle rhythm of sleep. So imagine the cool night air of the Nile. Imagine the soft glow of distant stars, and allow the quiet peace of this ancient land to guide you gently into rest. Good night.